Welcome to Come You're Crazy for This Crazy Life. I'm Kiana Lambert, and in this episode, we are going to be talking more about how you create reality. In the last episode, I talked about how I came to the conclusion on how we create reality in a linear equation with variables for X, Y, and Z. X and Y are in our chromosomes, and Z is your higher self. And I took X and Y because those are, X and Y is a one-dimensional graph. And then when you add the Z through the middle, it becomes fully dimensional. And so that is how we create reality, because we are in a quantum reality that is math-based. And X, Y, and Z in an algebraic equation, which is a simple equation, are linear equations. And we experience time linearly. So we are literally creating this reality so simply with X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z are just variables. They're variables that have no assigned meaning, which means they're just little pockets of quantum that we assign meaning to as the observer of our reality and our collapsing of the quantum wave. And then we create everything we see around ourselves, including the blades of grass, like down to the quantum, okay? So we create a linear equation to experience this linear reality. Linear meaning time and sequential order. Like the sun rises in the morning and sets at night. That is linear. Now, again, remember that variables in math have no assigned meaning or value until you, the one who's doing the math equation, also the observer who collapsed the quantum wave from the quantum field, assigns their value. I also simplify this when I talk about ingredients. So you can think of variables as ingredients that are made up of everything you have experienced since you were born. And they create the same recipe that you experience day after day in your reality creation. Today I'm going to go into what programming is and how it affects your recreation of the past into your present reality and how you can change it. So first I want to discuss what constitutes a variable or an ingredient, because there's been a lot of confusion around this, and I understand that it's a hard concept, and I'm, wrapping my brain around it too, my mind around it as well. So a variable or ingredient is anything, a thought, a mindset, an action, a previous wound from childhood, a dream. It is anything that you have experienced, chosen, wanted, dreamt of. It is everything that you experienced, looked at, felt, saw from the time you were born. You can also think of it as an ingredient. Now, what programming is a fixed variable, meaning it already has an assigned value from the past, and it's fixed because of your belief. The sky is blue because you believe it's blue. That is a fixed variable or ingredient and has a predicted outcome. You know the sky is blue. When the sun gets up in the morning, you wake up, you expect it to be blue. And that is the same way other variables that are in your life end up creating your reality. Another example. One person commented on Instagram that she was Catholic, and that was the one true religion for all. So her variable that makes up her belief and her reality creation is Catholicism, and the rules that make up Catholicism and define that religion. If she is bad, her variables collapse in her quantum wave, and she feels the repercussions based on whatever the religion says will be her repercussions, because that is what she believes will happen. And that is her reality she is creating from her quantum field. Now, this is an example of a conscious belief. So this is not necessarily programming, but it is a fixed variable based on her conscious belief system. And it could be quasi unconscious because if she was Catholic from the time she was little, then it's very ingrained in her belief system. But she is also, as an adult, knows that there are other religions because she said it's the one true religion, meaning she already knows that there are other religions, and she is saying that this is the one true religion, meaning at this point, she is consciously choosing that belief. She knows what will happen if she deviates from the rules of that belief, and that is her conscious choice. Now, programming is unconscious beliefs that are fixed variables based on your wounds, dreams, beliefs, wants, and things. And any stimulation or stimuli that you experienced, saw, felt, heard before you could process them, usually from ages 1 to 7, or you hid them from yourself because the feelings were too big to process at the time. And it could go beyond age of 7. My parents constantly fought, and they were physical. So, and that was older. I was older than 7. And so I didn't recreate a physical relationship where somebody was physical with me, but I recreated a lot of arguing, especially with my first marriage. So that was me recreating a situation, a person, for me to work out what I thought was love, and to work out and process what I experienced as a child. So that leads me to examples. People that have constant drama, no matter where they go, they continue to experience that drama. They usually come from dramatic households with drama or trauma, like mine. They have no idea that they're literally creating their reality over and over and over again because of the fixed variables or ingredients that they unconsciously believe, because that is all they know. All they know is drama. All they know is the cortisol and the adrenaline that pumps through their bodies when they're having fights or when they're thinking things or they're thinking negatively. They have no idea what peace looks like because they have never had that experience or that variable in their lives. This is an example of a fixed unconscious variable. It makes the same linear equation that creates the reality that they experience over and over and over again. These same people see other people that have different variables, different experiences, and they want them. But they have no idea how to get them because they have these unconscious variables that are keeping them trapped in the same equation. And that is my experience for most of the people in this world. This is also true for people who don't necessarily have drama or trauma, but they want more wealth. They want more material things. Their unconscious variables may be creating the reality based on the belief that money or wealth is bad for them or even scary. And that is a whole nother episode about your nervous system and beliefs, but we'll do that one as well. Or, and here's a big one, that they don't deserve it, that they don't believe they can get it. Belief is a huge variable, and it predicts the outcome of the equation of reality, because if one cannot believe in their own ability, their own power, their own value, their own worth to change the variables of their life, then it stays the same, creating and recreating the present from the predictable past. Now, I said creating and recreating present from predictable past, and I want to stop right here because that is a word that Dr. Joe Dispenza uses, okay? And this is important. So nothing that I'm saying here is new. This isn't me having a huge epiphany and saying something that has not been said before for the last thousands of years. I am merely saying it from my perspective in a different language that maybe those who are on my frequency should be able to understand, okay? It's a different perspective broken down in a way that I understand it and pieced it together. Now, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about recreating the present from the predictable past and how to change the future by rewiring your mind for positivity. And the way that I'm explaining it is with math and quantum physics and ingredients for recipes for food. And the reason I'm explaining it this way is because of frequency and vibration. So this is going to be a little sidestep from what we're doing of the math equation. But everything is frequency and vibration. It goes vibration, frequency, and then dimension. So we vibrate, then we move into a frequency, and then we move into dimensions. And people may not be able to hear Dr. Joe Dispenza. People that are in my frequency and below may not be able to hear him, meaning they won't be able to understand what he is saying. Because when you're not in the same vibration or frequency as somebody else, and vibration not so much, you can tell what people are saying if you're in that vibration. But if you're on a different frequency, you're not going to be able to understand them. You can be close, but it's going to sound like gibberish because you are not on that frequency. And you can see this in the comments. People are constantly saying stuff they don't understand because they're not in that frequency. So the reason that they can't hear it, and this is an example, okay? Dr. Joe Dispenza is a medical doctor. He's a white male, middle to upper class. Now he's very wealthy. And he healed his back when he had an accident and was told he was never going to walk again. He started concentrating on being able to walk and visualizing it and started walking again. And then he started going into research about quantum physics and all that stuff. So that's how I landed on that frequency, because my background is medical and I love quantum physics. I've been studying it since 2013. And when I found him, he was teaching quantum physics and healing the body through quantum physics. And because he was a medical doctor, I trusted him immediately, and I zoned into it and I zoomed into it and understood it. Now, that is his frequency. The way that I landed on it is because I'm abnormal. Not to say anything negative about myself. I'm just not the usual bear in the clan, okay? I was born into a cult with a lot of trauma. This puts me into a completely different frequency that a lot of people in this world are on. They're poor, they've had trauma and drama, and they've stayed in that frequency, right? But because I didn't have any societal influence, because we were sequestered in the cult, and because my parents had so many kids and I was in the middle, I never got any attention. So everything that I came to as a conclusion was drawn by myself based on my observation. There were so many inconsistencies that I came to my own conclusions on my own. There was nobody influencing that outside myself. So I had no belief that I was unable to do anything. I literally just saw how people did things and they failed, and then they tried again and they tried a different door, and I equated it to the video games that we played. And if I didn't pass the level the first time, I just tried something else the second time, and I equated that to life. And that's what I did. So I was not taught school. I taught myself school because they gave us a super workbook and made us work through it on our own. So that's how I went through college. I failed over and over and over again and just kept going back and back and back till I got my master's. So that's how I went from the poor trauma frequency to also having the frequency of Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm not white. I was born poor and I am of mixed heritage. So I don't have the experience that Dr. Joe Dispenza has of being an upper middle class white male. And I'm not saying anything about race or anything else. I'm just saying that that puts him into a specific frequency based on his experiences and his life. And mine was a set of both of them. Not all of his, mostly mine of the lower frequency. And not that there's any hierarchy, but I'm separating them that way. So as soon as I finished college and my background was medical and I loved quantum physics, I was able to hear his frequency. And now that I have this, I translate what I know into a frequency that other people that have my frequency, poor, trauma, drama, can hear so that they can change their reality. And that's how we change the world. This is how we share information with each other. and have more variables to choose from when we are deciding what to believe and accept as new variables from which to create our reality equation or ingredients for recipes to create food. And I pause to say this because it's important to understand that everyone is different and unique, and there are no rules except the ones we believe and create for ourselves in reality. So it's called free will. It's the choice to accept somebody else's variables, like mine, the ones I'm teaching right now, or to say no and reject them. I don't believe that, and go find the ones that resonate with them. So if this doesn't resonate for you, then it's not for you. It's not your frequency, and it will not work for you. So you'll need to find something that does work for you. For example, the Catholic woman. This would not work for her, okay? Her life is Catholicism, and that's what makes her happy, and that's how she validates herself, and that's how she creates her reality, okay? So back to creating ingredients and variables. I discussed conscious choice variables, which includes the beliefs, how those are fixed because those are what we believe and how we create our reality. I also discussed unconscious variables that are also based on unconscious beliefs, and these are also the way we create reality. Now, one thing I want to point out here is all of this is reality creation of the present based on the past programming, and that programming is the predictable past. So even if you're consciously, like the Catholic woman, choosing Catholicism and those rules, that is still based on the past, okay? And she's still living her life, creating reality based on that prediction, on those variables, and those are in the past. So now I want to discuss how to change it. Changing religions is a choice. You can choose to change religions anytime you want. A lot of people choose to become Jews, right? Or choose Judaism as their adopted religion, or some form of it. So that's an example. Changing religions is a choice. And you may have grown up Baptist. So it may take a while to reprogram your mind to go from being a Baptist to a Catholic, or from being Catholic to choosing Judaism. This is a conscious choice, and it's an example of conscious reprogramming based on that choice. So the choice part is important because changing unconscious beliefs is also just a conscious choice. But first you need to become aware of what you're doing unconsciously. And this is the first step. So knowledge is power. Now that you know that you're creating reality based on the predictable past with ingredients that are fixed variables or ingredients that already have an assigned meaning, and they have been there unconsciously based on programming which you have experienced since birth, now you know you can change it because you have that knowledge, okay? So this is how you do that. So you have somewhat of the knowledge and the idea, and now you need to find out how you are doing this. So what is the unconscious programming that you're creating your reality with? So you need to start by looking for the patterns. For example, if you keep attracting drama and trauma, what did your childhood look like? What were your parents like? If you keep attracting unavailable partners who don't give you what you need, what were your parents like? I'm asking this because you will create things for you to understand and process. So if you only experienced love in the form of a narcissistic way, like I did with my mother and father, I unconsciously believed that love was conditional, and created relationships and friendships where love was conditional on what I did to earn it, because that was the only thing that I knew. Those were fixed variables based on unconscious programming because they were the only thing that I knew of love. I had no other variables, experiences in order for me to know what that was, or how it happened, or how it worked. Additionally, if you had critical, controlling parents that made you believe that your life value was based on what you earned or what education you had, then you will create a life where you are constantly trying to earn more or learn more to to be more so that you can feel better about yourself. I didn't want to get my master's in healthcare administration, but my parents told me, stay in healthcare. You're always going to have a job because people are always going to be sick. I didn't want to do that, but I wanted their approval. And my brothers were getting their nursing masters. So I was like, okay, I need to earn this so that I can feel better about myself, so I can earn their love. So I went through and I got my associate's degree, my bachelor's degree, and then my master's. Did I use any of it? Somewhat, but it's not what I wanted to do, so it didn't stick. Nothing that you do is going to stick permanently. You're going to hate it. Even if you stick to it until the day that you pass away and move on, it's not going to stick. You'll just be born again to have another experience. But it didn't stick for me. I've got a really hard head, and that didn't stick because it just wasn't for me. So that is an example of how I created reality based on my unconscious programming variables and patterns. So now what? Well, once you know, you have to change yourself. You create reality, and it is a reflection of your internal state. So you have to change the belief, for example, that in the pattern of my partners and my parents, that love is conditional. You have to change that belief that your worth is only there because of what you achieved. And how do you do that? First, you have to believe in yourself and believe that you create reality. You have to connect with yourself. You have to trust yourself. And you have to believe that you have the power and have had the power all along. It's just like in the movies, just like when Dorothy's had the power all along. We create stories that we see that resonate with us as a reflection, so that's giving ourselves clues. The Wizard of Oz was not my favorite movie, but that part resonated with me my entire life. Because it really pissed me off, actually. Dorothy's had the power all along. Why the hell did she have to go through all that stuff? Well, now I know. Because that's the game. That's the simulation. It's hard. Once you figure it out, you've had the power all along, and that's how you change it. So, this can be a hard sell. The belief part can be a hard sell. It was a hard sell for me, and I am a science and math person, so I want concrete proof, right? So ask yourself for proof. This is the mirror exercise that I talk about, where you look in the mirror and you ask yourself to show yourself what reality really is. And this is purposeful. It's so that you can start proving to yourself that you create it. You're asking for that proof that you create it down to the blade of grass. So look in the mirror, look into your eyes. The eyes are the windows to the soul. That's my experience. Now you do this over and over again. Keep doing it. You're going to have to create that relationship with yourself, that connection. And then you want to start looking for patterns and things that are abnormal. What I started noticing was that every time I wanted something and I focused on it, I got exactly what I wanted. I flipped a house and sold it sight unseen to a couple across the country in less than 24 hours. I started a dispatch flight following job, and within 3 months I was transferred within the company to my own division with my boss and then the president of the company making over 6 figures a year. And what I did within that time was look in the mirror and tell myself, I got this, I can do this, I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to show up every day as who I am inside, no matter what. And I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to love on myself. And it resonated. I started magnetizing things like crazy. And I was making, what, maybe in the 40s in that time? And then I went to over 6 figures in 3 months. It's unheard of. Like, statistically, it's unheard of. Then, and this is more recently when I really start playing with it in the nitty gritty, I started noticing that when, I'd pull up to stoplights or I'd be driving, the same make model of the same car were all on each side of me, like 6 of them. I started researching the odds of how this could happen. The odds are statistically so low that I was like, okay, this has got to be me. And I started asking for more. I started asking for feedback and signs. And this is the second step I talk about. So I would ask for random things at random times. And the reason I asked for randomness, because it was statistically highly unlikely that it could be anyone but me if I was asking for random times, right? Because I'm the only one who knows what I'm asking for randomly. So if it shows up for me, then it's just me. So I'd ask for signs like a blue jay or a ladybug or random numbers to show up for a random reason, and it would happen. So you can do that, and then I want you to start looking at all the coincidences in your life, just like I did. They're not random. They're created from your unconsciousness and your variables that you've experienced. Names will continue to be the same. You watch movies and they'll just be the same names over and over again. There's frickin' million names in the world. You looked a bunch of them up when you named your kid. If you're like me, I looked a ton of them up. But the ones that I chose, the ones that I experienced, my favorite characters in the movies, those are the names that show up in all my TV episodes that I watch, the movies that I watch. And you're going to be able to trace it back to a favorite name from a favorite movie. Names are cool and they're constant for me. I like them. So when I see things that always show up, I always just say to myself, my matrix. Or when serendipitous things happen, my matrix. And that's just a way of me like giving myself feedback, because the more that you cheer yourself on and the more that you build that relationship with yourself, the more that you're going to be able to do and see. So what do you do with all this when you piece it together? I'm teaching something for other people to understand. So I'm not just saying stuff to hear my own voice. Like, I want it to have utility for people to use, for them to change their reality and their life. Because right now, if you look around the world, if the world is a collective reflection of all of our consciousness, then the more that I can change my frequency, your frequency, then the world is going to change that and reflect it. I only need 1%. 1%. And then the whole thing flips. So I like to win, not because I want something. I like to win because I'll enjoy the challenge. And this is me playing the game for the challenge. So what you do with this is you start to ask yourself to show yourself how to change it and how to get what you want. Some people don't know what they want, so you got to ask yourself sometimes, what do I want? And ask yourself to show it to yourself. Show me what I want. Build that relationship with yourself and talking to yourself. It doesn't always have to be the mirror. You can sit and ask yourself to show you. Show me what I want. Show me what I need. Show me how to get there. This is a fun one. Show me my power and how to use it. There are so many things that you can do with it. If you want something, ask for it. Show me how to get it. And this is fun because I take common denominators in all religions, right? I did theology and sociology and all that for a while in my college. And the common denominator is ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. Now my base religion was Christianity, so I used that. I was made to memorize the King James Version of the Bible from front to back, or else I would get in trouble. So I know the verses. And when I started doing theology and I started researching and doing stuff for college and reading English literature of the non-Western world, common themes started showing up. Ask, receive, talk to your God, which is just yourself. Because once you know, or do theology or do that, you can research and see how all the texts were changed. And I had to do a class, And my argument was if religion supported or was created to control mankind. And in that research, it was very obvious when you did the timeline and started the research process that texts were changed to go from the power being within the person to the power going to the church in the form of some deity. So you were always God, or what they refer to as God, and the message was always, ask yourself and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you, from you. So that's going to be a hard sell for some people. And if it is, this is not for you. And that's okay. All roads lead to Rome. Everyone's having their experience. It all goes into the quantum field and it is all there for me to access. So believe whatever you want. It's more for me to have access to, because once you have the knowledge on how to access it, everybody's experience goes into the quantum field. Every single one. And you can know and have access to it because it's all there. It's a neural network. And that's just another show for another time. Anyway, so ask yourself to show it to you. I don't decide what podcast episode is going to be about. I used to try that in the beginning. It was too stressful and I'd have to like sit there and create this whole stuff. I don't do that anymore. I want everything to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. So I ask myself, I usually start asking over the weekend, what is this podcast episode going to be about? And I ask myself to show me, and then I'll have a trigger or a video or something that comes up. It may even be something painful that it comes up for me. And I'm like, okay, that's what this podcast is going to be about. And then I go for it. Or it could be something super exciting. The more it excites you, like this one was really exciting for me because I pieced together the math part and the graph part from last week. So the more it excites you, the more that you know it's the right path, okay? The excitement is the signal from the higher self that you've been building this relationship with, right? Whoever you're talking to in the mirror, that's you. That's your higher self. That's your consciousness. That's your spirit. That's your soul. That is the unphysical you. And if you listened to last week's episode, there's got to be an unphysical you, because there's an X and a Y, a black and a white, a left and a right. We live in a world of polar opposites. So if there's a physical you, there has to be a non-physical you, and that's who you're speaking to, the one that sees everywhere and is everywhere, everything all at once. Okay? So excitement, feelings, those are how you are communicating with your higher self. Your higher self communicates through the body. The body is the mode of communication. Why? Because your unphysical self or non-physical self is going to communicate with you in non-physical ways. And then it also can communicate with you in physical ways. If you're asking for something to show up, then it shows up physically. And that is a physical reflection. But for this specifically, when you need to know what to say, what to feel, what you want, what action to take, those are going to show up in non-physical ways unless you assign it. So if you say, what do I want? The first thing that I see, or I want the reflection to be a blue jay, and a blue jay is going to mean that I need to do this. For example, join the military. Or if I see a cardinal, it means that I need to go to school for this. Like all the choices that you have, you can assign them to feedback systems like a blue jay or a cardinal or a number. And then you ask, this is what I have assigned it. Show me what I want. Show me which path I need to do. And then it will show up in the physical. But if you don't assign it that, and you just ask to be shown, it's going to come in a feeling. It's going to come in a nudge. And even if you are not asking for the feedback in the form of specific signs, you are always getting signs. You are always getting clues. Always. So, I talked about assigning signs to prove to you that you're creating reality. I talked about starting to build that relationship with your higher self. And now I'm going to talk about making actual change through listening to the signals in your body, like excitement, joy, and how that is communication from your higher self. So I talked about it a little bit, but the feelings, the emotions, the nudges are all signals coming from your higher self. And I say higher self, but you can call it spirit, soul, unphysical you, non-physical you, whatever. Those are all coming from within you. The caveat and the challenge is if you don't feel your body. Like, I have trouble feeling my body sometimes. If I get really dysregulated or something happens and it throws me into dysregulation, then I will not feel. And then I have to work back to safety and feeling and regulating again. It's a practice. It takes consistency. And even though I've been doing it for a long time, it still happens. So if you don't feel your body, you're going to have a challenge. You're going to have that challenge of knowing what you're feeling, what it means, and you're going to have to practice. And that's a whole other episode. So this is like a kind of a big overview, but it can get very detailed, and that's why people only teach little parts of it, because they can't track all of it all at once, and it's very difficult to get somebody to understand all of it all at once. So they teach these little things, and those are fractured pieces that can be really hard to put it together because it can be so complicated. So the main thing from this episode is to take how it works and to start practicing looking for the unconscious patterns, those fixed variables, ingredients from your past, and how you are creating them in your present. And start building that relationship with yourself so you can start trusting what you see and what you feel. And last but not least, I want to talk about once you build that relationship with yourself, you need to fall in love with yourself. This is a hard sell for a lot of people because they always, nobody wants to be wrong. So everybody that I meet, and I'm like, do you love yourself? Because I'm constantly asking questions, constantly making connections. I mean, I have no love life, and I don't really care for one because I'm so fascinated about everything else I experience. But everybody says, of course I love myself. I do. I love myself. Do you? Not like this, you don't. Love is a high frequency, and I'm talking about that love that you feel when you fall in love with somebody. I'm talking about that love that you feel when you love your kids. It's right below authenticity. So, think about when you've fallen in love. And if you haven't fallen in love, this is going to be a challenge. But it's that really deep love. And you've loved something like this, whether it's a pet or your parents or your sibling or somebody. It's going to be the closest thing to it. But it's not exactly it. When you fall in love with somebody because they made you feel good about yourself. You meet them, they compliment you. Oh man, it's so crazy. Like, I can see people that try to pick me up and they think that it's going to appeal to me if they compliment me. And that would normally work for most people, but I validate myself. So when they start to do all that, I don't respond to it because I validate myself and I feel that way about myself. I'm in love with me. So before, though, when I didn't feel good about myself, when I wasn't connected to myself, when I didn't validate myself, when I didn't have all that because I was still living unconsciously, when somebody came along and they made me feel good about me and they made me feel seen and they made me feel validated, it made me feel really good. But here's the thing. All those feelings came from me. When you fall in love, all those feelings come from you, not them. They just activated something you wanted for yourself. They activated what I wanted to feel for myself because I didn't get it from my parents. So I wanted to feel that. And the person that I ended up with, well, I've only had 2 partners. So the 2 people that I ended up with made me feel that. The connection, the validation, I was being seen. And we think that it was from them, especially because society has us outsource our power. who we are and tells us it's selfish to think of ourselves. So we automatically don't think in the first person. We don't think of ourselves. We always push everything away from us and we give it to somebody else. And this is on purpose, to make this simulation, this matrix or life or whatever you want to call it, harder and more challenging. But it is the secret to making everything work. So think about it. When you fell in love, you were riding high. Nothing could put you in a bad mood. The sky was bluer, the grass was greener. All you could think about was that person and being with them again because of how good it made you feel when you were with them. I'm the kind of person that loves like a Mack truck, and I don't care where we are, what we do. I could be poor, I could be in a ranty shack in the middle of nowhere. As long as we were together, it wouldn't matter. Because that's how I love. That's how I love myself, and that's how I love other people. And I don't know if that's how you love other people, but that's how I do. But there's got to be some variation of how you feel about other people whenever you fell in love. So that feeling, all those feelings came from you. And this is why people bounce from partner to partner, because as soon as the feelings run out, they go looking for it in someone else and it starts all over again. And this is why partnerships end. Because once that person stops reflecting to you the things that made you love them in the first place or made you have those feelings in the first place, then it becomes a process, something to work on, right? So the point to take away is that all these feelings were activated within you because they are you. They came from you, and you can give them to yourself. And the way that you do that is to recall the feeling and love yourself with it. Look in the mirror and tell yourself, I love you, and fall in love with yourself. Why? Because you will feel that feeling every single day, but it's with yourself. And you will be on such a high frequency and vibrational state that reality is going to mirror that. Because remember, reality mirrors our internal state. And whenever I'm in this state and I go out and I'm just feeling this, I start to experience so many synchronicities and I feel so happy. People start magnetizing to me. People start coming towards me and they want to talk to me, strangers, and opportunities fall into my lap. Manifestation, this is really what it is. Opportunities come your way. Things that you want, things that you didn't even know you wanted, tons of things just start happening to you. You win things, you get money, you find things. People start to talk to you and want to give you things, and you'll be fluttering along, and it's all happening for you. And think about this. When you're in love, there's nothing that ever bothered you about your partner in the beginning, right? You saw past all their red flags in the beginning and their past, because you were having all those feelings that were coming from within you. Well, it's the same when you fall in love with yourself. The past won't matter. All your mistakes and the shame and the guilt that you normally feel, gone. You're going to see how every single thing that you lived, every single thing that happened to you was for purpose, to bring you to where you are here and now, so that you can learn and grow. And you're going to be so connected to everything that it doesn't matter what's going on outside or in other people's reality. You're going to feel safe and happy, and you won't have the fear because you know you've got your own back and that you're creating everything to experience. Anxiety and stress may come up, but you're going to handle it. You know what to do. This is the state that everyone is looking for outside themselves and working so hard to get. This is what I was working for when I went to school. This is what I was working for when I got married. This is what I was working for. And it was all right here all along. And it's really sad because I see people that are famous and that, go into drug addiction or whatever else. And then they end up passing on. And they're alone when they pass on. And they're sad. And it's heartbreaking because everything that they wanted was inside them and they just didn't know it. They had those periods of highs when they were famous and doing the things they wanted to do. And then, whenever all that went away, like it will, they were left empty because they never built that connection with themselves. So I want to say that the state is not constant, okay? But once you practice it enough, it stays for prolonged periods of time. And you can recall it easier and you can stay in it longer. And even when you're not feeling it, like, I'll be honest, I'm not feeling it right this second, you know, but I still have the foundation of trust that I built with myself. And I still have that feeling of love and trust that I built with myself. And I still continue to take action from the feelings and the nudges and speaking to myself. And then I continue to have new experiences. And those are new variables and new thought patterns and new beliefs and new ingredients that I get to create reality from. And it's going to be the same for you. So, this is the actual secret to manifestation. The other stuff is giving you a glimpse, an interpretation of what they had with the thoughts and everything, and that is part of it. But this is the literal way, through you, because you're creating everything. So the only way to create a manifestation is to build that relationship with yourself and then learn how to control it and then bring it about. So I know that was another long episode. So thanks for listening, and I will catch you next time. Bye.